Thank you all for coming to our first ever Real Talk Live, of course, at the Wilshire Penthouse, Penthouse 19E, where we're at, and it's so spectacular. We're really excited to have you all out for this. I want to introduce my panelists. We've got Rayni Williams, the CEO and co-founder.
Hi, everyone.
And then also our other panelist, the fabulous Jenny Ting, who is the Director of New Development for Eklund and Gomes nationwide. She's here, she's working on beautiful projects such as 8899 Beverly, which we're all very excited to have come, and also expanding to other towers.
I remember when I first met you, and I came to 8899 Beverly, right? And I brought a really big client, and I was so nervous because I didn't know all of the specs. It was just, there was one model.
Yeah.
And Jenny was so amazing. And this client, she was the first female partner ever at a really big law firm called Skadden with her. And I could just take a deep breath when Jenny walked in because she was so professional. She knew everything. And that's really what's great about having listing agents and being a buyer's agent and vice versa. That reciprocity is great because you don't always know the product you're walking into, but if you have a really strong listing agent, it makes for an amazing game of tennis. And so I just sort of like handed her off. And this woman never compliments, ever. And she said, I really liked, she remembered your name. She's like, I really liked that Jenny. And she was so knowledgeable. And that building is incredible. So you were, of course, the first person we thought of when we wanted to do this, because this penthouse, what all of you have said, some of you haven't toured it, we want to show you if you haven't, but those that you have looked around, this penthouse, you have to see it to believe it. It's a home in the sky.
What do you feel is the difference in showings, and how would you show vertical living versus residential?
This is a really good point that you bring up because I don't show them differently. So maybe you can teach me the difference. I show everything the same. You know, I think strategically about the layout and how does it flow and how do you live in a space. And because I don't specialize in new development, maybe I haven't been trained that way, but I would show this the same way. I would start by engaging them in the foyer and start pointing out a few materials and then take a temperature read. Are they with me? Are they want to do their own thing? Are they people that don't like to be talked to too much? You know, temperature read. And then if they're with me, and then I can really go into, you know, this was built by Victor Gruen, who's a very reclaimed architect, and this was built for the owners for themselves. It's 2 units put together, and I can really start to go, and I can talk about the view from, you know, downtown all the way into the ocean, and hit, you know, the different points in the mountains, and, you know, the bedroom, and when you wake up and you're looking southeast to the mountains, and all these things, if they're engaged. But sometimes you know they're not engaged, and I guess what I would love to know from you, Jenny, is in new development, what is the technique? Because, like I said, when I came into your building, I sort of was so happy to hand off my buyer to you. So what would you do?
In the new development world, we don't technically necessarily get the luxury of having a completed project. A lot of times you're selling the future. You're selling on plan and you're selling off of photos. So condos like this have not been built, and it's very, very, very hard, to believe it or not, to get a buyer into that visualization mode. A sales gallery is super important, but most developers may not have the budget to build a sales gallery. Some developers, and I've been fortunate enough to work in $4 million in our Edition gallery, $8 million galleries, and some have 0. When you have no sales gallery, it's so important to talk about everything that's not the condo. You want to sell the location, you want to sell the views, you want to sell the future, and you're taking the client on this journey 5 years ahead because it's not done. Mm-hmm. It's not something you can walk them into. So painting that picture, I would say the biggest difference is that, but overall, what Rayni does is spot on. You're taking the temperature. You want to feel out and know what your buyer's looking for and to take them on that journey with them.
What was your experience like with the Edition? Rayni on the selling side and Jenny on the marketing side.
Well, I just love that building. I love that. I love the location of it. You know, I've always loved the Sierra Towers, and I think that this is the next greatest, newer, better version. There are so many amenities. I think the architecture and the fit finish is second to none. We had the honor of selling the Penthouse, and it was so good that our client should have never bought it because it wasn't right for him. He was just getting married. We knew he was going to expand his family, and we said, "Are you sure you want this?" And he's like, "I don't know why, but I really want this."
Yeah.
And I knew in a year he's going to want something different, and it wasn't even a year. You know, it was he then ended up having a baby and his wife decided they wanted a home, so we have it back on the market. But my experience in working with the Edition, and first of all, their marketing is unbelievable, unparalleled. Their books I still have, and I'm not a pack rat, I promise you. I live in a modern home, like not a lot of space. I have the book in my bookshelf in my master bedroom. It's like it's unbelievable because it's so beautiful.
So what Rayni is talking about, the book, something like new development, a booklet or a brochure or a new development presentation book is super important. All parts and goes into, I would say 4 years before the Edition was even open to sales. So 4 years ago, before we launched sales, so it means 4 years ago we started sales, so take us back, so 8 years ago we started.
Which makes it that much more remarkable. Sorry to cut you off, Vicky.
No.
Because if you think about development, it's usually 4 or 5 years prior to finished product. So you have to have such forward thinking, and because you have to be thinking, right, space age for not having a done product that is, you know, tired and not desirable anymore. And this is just that.
Totally. So. Like getting a listing for a house, you want to think about what's my marketing for the next 2 weeks. My listing agreement is signed for 60 days or 120 days, but you have the longevity and the house ready done. So to put that future lens goggle on, and hopefully I had a crystal ball 8 years ago, you have to think about the market 8 years at a time, and you have to think about the architecture 8 years ahead. You have to think about the design. So everything, all of that goes into your marketing and what you're planning to be in your marketing materials. Our vertical living, if you guys are familiar with big cities, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, even Miami, vertical living and condos are such an everyday commodity. But LA, why do people move to LA? For the pool, for the air, to be outside, to have land, to be in the beach, so for LA, vertical living wasn't in the forefront of the focus. Condos were not the first priority when people wanted to move out here. So you're gonna see, and we're in the perfect place for it. The Wilshire corridor started 80 years ago, 60 years ago, when this would be the most vertical living community, I would say LA has, and then downtown LA started to happen. Downtown LA, we're still seeing a little bit more transition time, but I think in the next 8 to 10 years, we'll see that transform.
Thank you so much for joining us at Penthouse 19E.